This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Thursday, and we are chock full today. Now, I want to start off with one thing. Usually, I try to have Dr. Joe Eastman, our COVID expert, on the air during the what is the 3 o'clock hour here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the 9 o'clock hour out in Chicago, so that you guys can hear him because he's really good. Fortunately, I've already booked today. As a matter of fact, Bill Corbett from Riff Tracks is going to join us coming up here. They've got a live show they're doing here in a week, a little more than a week. Plus, that show is going to be aired nationwide through Fathom Events at movie theaters. We'll talk about that. It's Point Break. Plus, he wants to chime in on politics, and he's also very good at politics. So we'll talk to Bill Corbett coming up here from Riff Tracks at about 3:30 this afternoon. But I want to encourage everyone, and especially in Chicago, because by the time you're listening to this right now, the interview with Dr. Joe is going to have aired, and we'll have it up on all of your favorite podcast outlets, including iTunes and stuff like that. And I want you to listen to it because there is, last night when it became clear that Joe Biden, the president of the United States, had COVID, I mean, we heard the usual belly aching and blah, 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 blah. But it was something, Dr. Joe sent me something about President Biden and COVID, which made me immediately step back and say, okay, this is a health problem now. And I'll get to that. Once again, I want you to listen to it. I'm going to save that in conversation for that interview I'm going to do with Dr. Joe, which once again in Chicago is available. It's going to air in the beginning of the Minneapolis hour here, but you can listen to it on your favorite podcast site. Just go look for the Matt McNeil Show, and then for today's date and Dr. Joe, and you'll be able to listen to that. That makes sense there, Brett?
I picked it up. You got it.
Me like words. All right. So, and then in case you missed it, Bill Corbett's going to join us. I love Bill. One of the funniest human beings I've ever met. And, of course, Riff Tracks. And like I said, he wants to chime in a little bit on politics here. We'll talk about all that coming up here. But I want to, and like I said, I could definitely talk about Joe Biden, because it is sounding more and more like there might be a switch at the top of the ticket coming sooner than later. It sounds like there are people that are saying that this this COVID is kind of it for a lot of people, and there's pushing. Until we have news, I don't want to necessarily go there. I'm going to stay with what I've been saying from this point. Until he's not the Democratic nominee, my vote goes for Joe. Joe Biden's been the most successful first-term president since FDR, probably top 3 first-term presidents ever, and that's saying something. Maybe top 4. I mean, there are some nuances there that I have to get to, but one of the great first-term presidents we've ever had, especially when it comes to policy. He has been wildly successful, and until he is not the nominee, he is my vote. So I'll save that for later. But I want to get to something here. And let me start by reading a Washington Post columnist, Jennifer Rubin, basically savaged the media yesterday for something that I pointed out this morning and savaged the media for myself, the news media. Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin accused CNN and other broadcast networks of new lows with their coverage of the Republican National Convention. In a post on Twitter, Rubin called out CNN on Thursday. CNN and other broadcasters have reached a new low in RNC coverage, fawning over unity and young Vance, ignoring we are seeing a fascist party overflowing with criminals plot the downfall of America. A VP who is the single most radical and unqualified in history, Rubin wrote. No pushback on lack of information on Trump's injury. It's access journalism at its worst. It's not media we need to defend democracy, she lamented. Throughout the Republican convention, CNN has devoted a few scant minutes each night to fact-checking the falsehoods repeated by the speakers, and that's it. They have CNN has been atrocious. The New York Times has been atrocious. Huffington Post has been trying to make up for their anti-Biden screeds for the last 3 weeks, but they still have not really gone, too deep into it. But it's everyone out there because they're just. I have said this. Let's just say Joe Biden is replaced. What's the news going to become from New York Times? What's the news going to come from CNN? What's the news going to come from Huffington Post? Gee willikers, why would the Democrats do that? Joe Biden was your best chance of winning. Same exact news outlets who have been insistently screaming that Joe Biden needs to be replaced. That's it's clear. I said this a few weeks ago when I did a show. I said for CNN, for the New York Times, for all these guys, if they dare go after Republicans, it jeopardizes their ownership, who is generally far-right conservative. It generally jeopardizes their ad dollars, which generally these companies are run by uber conservatives that are getting wealthier and wealthier off this god-awful Republican policies. So it's safe for them to attack Democrats, and so they cowered away and nothing. I mean, CNN has been atrocious with their coverage. I mean, my God, where are you getting the knee pads in such bulk? It is just disturbing. Nothing highlights that. Let me go back to the post I made this morning. They had signs at this convention, signs that said mass deportation now. Proudly. Not one guy with a sign that they quickly yanked down. No, they printed them. They handed them out. They were about, Andy Richter, Conan's former partner, put one picture out. It is about 20 people all holding mass deportation now signs, and he just put the label Christian. And it just, exactly. And I'm sorry, I know people don't like this. If you're I'm not saying you are Nazis, but you're sure cosplaying Nazis. It looks like you guys are like those people that go and reenact Civil War battles at this point, only you're reenacting the pro-Nazi rallies of the 1930s in this country, where you'd walk into places like New York and Milwaukee, and there'd be Nazi banners all over the place. I'm not saying you are Nazis, but you sure are not hiding where you want this country to go. And the thing I pointed out this morning is you wonder how fascism creeps into democracies. A major part of that is the news media ignoring this. And here is a large portion of the Republican Party sitting out there waving their mass deportation now signs. And you guys are like, don't you love their plucky spirit? It is disturbing. It is absolutely disturbing. And if I can, I want to... Okay, the New York Times decided to do a story on this. And you say to yourself, oh, good, thank God they're calling out. It's like, we've talked to Republicans about this embracing of authoritarianism, of a dictator stance. We want answers. You think that would be where they're going? Nope. What they said is, hey, guess what? They want to deport everybody. What does that look like cost-wise in America? Now, I don't want to say you've missed the point, but dear God, New York Times, if there's anything that tells you you're trying desperately to not make your advertisers and your conservative editors mad and your owners mad, it's the fact that, sure, it's a crime against humanity to do mass deportations, but let's just look at the nuts and bolts of it and the cost factors. So fine, I'll look at it. They want to do this. There were 11 million immigrants with legal permission in 2022, according to the latest government estimates. More than 8 of 10 have been in the country for more than a decade. I'll get to about why many of those people have been here for over a decade. Trump has been using the debate during the debate last month that there was 18 million. That is completely unsubstantiated. Trump and the Republican platform have made broad declarations, but thus far offered scant details on their intended operation, who they're exactly going to deport. The former president suggested that any immigrant lacking legal status is subject to removal. They've actually had one of his people come on out and said, well, we'll evaluate the country, a.k.a. white people, fine. you're from Sweden, hey, you're just reconnecting with long-lost relatives who moved over here in the 1800s. If you're not from a white country, you're a scourge, you need to leave. That's kind of what they're doing. The party platform states the most dangerous criminals would be prioritized. It says the Republican Party is committed to sending illegal aliens back home and removing those who have violated our laws. So basically, it's anyone who is here without proper documentation. That's who they're saying they're going to get rid of. The consensus among immigration experts and former Homeland Security officials is the logistical, legal, and bureaucratic cost barriers would make it virtually impossible to carry out mass deportations. But you see, that's the point. They don't care. This isn't about doing it right. This is just about targeting certain people. And for the New York Times, even with this bizarro approach of looking at cost factors to basically kind of like bury that element of it, that okay, this would not be easy to do. It's not about whether it's the right thing to do. They want to just round up all the brown-skinned people and send them someplace, whether or not they're undocumented or not. That's what they want to do. And trust me, they're already practicing their, well, we thought they were bad guys, so that's not our problem answer. It would cost billions of dollars. It would probably take 20 years. It would cause the economy to shrink. That's what it would, the cost-wise. The overall cost operations, there were 936,000 deportations during the Trump administration. As of February, there's 340,000 people under the Biden administration. To identify and arrest millions of people in the interior of the country would require tens of thousands more immigration agents. Trump said he would have to enlist the National Guard and other resources. This is just about, hey, that's a person I think is a bad guy. This is all it is. This is going to be round up your neighbor, because they're not going to fund this, but they still want to get rid of these people. So if you think someone has done something wrong, then basically you are in the right, and as a person of a minority background, they are in the wrong. It's like when you have those Karens who will come on out, and forgive me if your name is Karen, that's not, but you know what I'm talking about, okay? Forgive me, it's not that. But you get these people, these white women who will basically get in someone's face and say, you stole that, and they'll yank something out of someone's hands. And basically the police get there and you find out, actually, no, she actually stole it from them. They have the receipt for it. She just saw them as a minority, thought they were a criminal, and basically confronted them. It would be as if then basically if a white woman does that and wrongly steals something from a minority person, accusing them of a theft, that the law will take their side. That's how crazy this is going to be. Cost aside, there's some other big problems with this. I'll talk about that when I come back. It is a massive news media fail. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
Nothing you. I wanna cross it, shut my eyes.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. Just breaking sad news. Bob Newhart has passed away. 94 years old. Still one of the greatest jokes in comedians getting cars getting coffee. One of the episodes they talk about Bob Newhart, and he had the dumbest airline pilots of all time. He's like trying to land the plane, and like, oh my God, I've never seen such a narrow runway, but look how wide it is. Anyway, if you let that joke sink in for a second, that's just brilliance. Bob Newhart passing away at 94. God, that one hurts. That one hurts. Newhart was way ahead of his time. Back when comedians were coming into restaurants and, we're doing supper clubs across the country, Ugh, that one hurts. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Get back to, let's just jump on back to the mass deportation thing that the Republicans are wanting to do, and they're bragging about. Once again, the news media sees this. They're all there. They say authoritarian. They see fascism, because that's what that is. That's authoritarianism. That's fascism. That's not democracy. That is dictator 101 stuff. This is the stuff we were seeing in the 1930s worldwide. That's what this is. And they basically give it a pass because plucky spirit. That's what they're kind of talking about. At least they had to do some coverage, but it was so misguided, just talking about, well, could they mass deport anyone? And I said that misses the point, because the point is not to do it right. I mean, for God's sakes, Donald separated children, babies, from their parents and could not find them because no one in his administration thought of writing down anyone's name. And it was only due to a Herculean effort by Joe Biden and his administration to get most of those families reconnected. They don't care about doing it right. It will be about turn in your neighbor. You think they're bad. It's on them to prove that they're not, and they can do that from a foreign country. That's what it's about. So cost is, if you're going to focus on cost, it's just stupid because you're missing the whole point of authoritarianism and fascism. They don't care about cost. It's about basically going after the black and brown people and the Asian people. The other two things about this which we need to discuss is, first of all, the economic disaster. Now, I had mentioned many of those people who are undocumented workers have been here for over 8 to 10 years. Why? It's the ugly truth about America and our economy. We desperately need undocumented workers to do most of the jobs in this country that no one else wants to do, particularly farm labor and processing labor in regards to agriculture, in regards to pork, chicken, beef, that sort of thing. That is why this is the great lie that we tell ourselves. In Alabama, they passed a law that said if you house anyone who's undocumented, that you could go to jail. And immediately overnight, all the migrant farmer workers disappeared out of Alabama. And there was one guy that was talking about this. He talking about these people had worked for him. His family had worked for him for 15, 20 years. They were like family to him, and then they were gone. And he couldn't figure out what had happened. Finally, by the time he tracked them down, he realized they were scared, and so they left. So he says, fine, I'll just hire locals then, because once again, that's someone who's taken a job away from an American. That's their argument. So he'd bring people on in, was actually paying them more than the people that were run off, and they'd work for 3 hours and say, the heck with this. This is hard labor. Yeah. Undocumented workers come here, and they're willing to do that stuff. Our American economy runs off of undocumented labor. It does. Construction, hotels, hospitality, agriculture. And if you say to me, well, Matt, what we'll do is like Donald Trump when he gets a waiver to hire non-American citizens to work at his facilities, we'll just do that. Well, then if you're saying undocumented workers are good for all these jobs, then what are we doing here? And the reality is it's just about punishing minority people. And frankly, I don't think they care. And this is why this is so scary. I think the people that want to deport these people could care less about the impacts to the economy, which will be destroyed if this happens. And sure, they'll say, well, we'll start sending prisoners out again. We'll start emptying the jails and have them go work menial labor. You're not going to get... First of all, that is cruel and inhuman punishment. But that being said, even if you did get the Supreme Court, which likely would go along with it, what you'd end up having is not nearly enough prisoners. So either you have to start arresting more people so they can go work in the farms, or basically you have to let the undocumented workers back in. Needless to say, you're going to cavitate the entire economy. So it's stupid that way. But I also want to make sure I point out something that is just abysmal to me. And you wonder why people in this day and age have been leaving religion, Christianity in particular. Last night in that Milwaukee arena, there were multiple Christian leaders. Gospel of Matthew, welcome in strangers from strange lands. They sat there. Many Christian leaders sat there and smiled and applauded as mass deportation now signs were flashed among the crowd. None of them got up and stormed out of the arena saying, you know what, this is not us. The same party that can't wrap themselves in the Bible enough ignores massive swaths of when it comes to an agenda with a smile on their face. Look at those bigoted jackasses in Milwaukee. Look at their smiles. Look at how happy they are. Look at how excited they are about being able to target the brown and black people and the Asian people that are here working the jobs they don't want to work. They're not Christians. They're not even close to Christians. And shame on the lack of outright outrage today in this country about that display in Milwaukee. Not only has the news media failed us in regards to Fascism 101 being displayed, but our religious institutions, which are based on strict teachings that tell you to welcome in strangers from strange lands. They themselves are willing to throw away large swaths of the Bible because they get the political power they desire with the Republican Party. This was a massive disaster across the board, and yet, because the news media is not saying anything and the religious people are not holding the so-called Christian right to any kind of Christian standard, guess what? Not much is going to happen. It is a terrifying place where we are at right now in this country, where the news media itself, the one last bastion of supposed to basically be there for us, has so eagerly abandoned that responsibility to where we ourselves are teetering on the brink of the end of democracy, and they sit there and talk about how pretty it is. Bill Corbett, when we come back, it's the Matt McNeil Show.
For as long as we're together.
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the afternoons on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Riff Tracks' Bill Corbett, kind enough to join us once again. Riff Tracks is going to be live coming up next weekend, isn't it? Coming up next weekend?
Next weekend, that is correct, Matt.
That's right. Point Break, that's right. That Point Break, that is what they are going to be riffing on. They're doing it live, and then through the magic of technology, it is going to be beamed across the nation via Fathom Events. It's going to be airing twice on Thursday, August 8th, Tuesday, August 13th. Minneapolis, St. Paul, the live show is going to be at the State Theater in downtown Minneapolis on Saturday, July 27th at 7 p.m. Chicago folks, you can come on up here for that, but you need to get your tickets now. That's going to sell out. And then, regardless if you're in Minneapolis or nationwide, once again, on August 8th and August 13th, you can catch those at your favorite movie theater through Fathom Events. You can find where that is playing there. Bill, how are you, my friend?
I am good, man. You are thorough, Matt. You got all that info out there like a champ. I'd still be mangling it for 3 minutes, coming up now. So thanks for taking that one for me.
No problem, man. Well, it's first of all, you're one of the funniest people I've ever met. You're just an absolute ride. It's just an absolute privilege to get to chat with you. I got a few movie questions. We'll get to this. I'll start off with this, the breaking news, and I don't know if you saw this. Bob Newhart passed away.
I just heard it in your like 5 minutes ago when you said it. That made me sad. I love him so much. End of an era. And, he lived to a respectable age. I think he was doing like sizable houses up until like 2 years ago, or maybe even sooner. So, man, what a career. But I just loved him. He had his unique style. I also love the fact that he was like best buddies with Don Rickles. Yeah. Like him and his wife and their wives would go vacationing every year, like take these cruises around the world. And I just, the guy who is the most caustic guy in the world and the most low-key, gentle comedian in the world just were best buddies. And I love that.
He was so good as the sitcom lead. I mean, and whether that was just because of his comedic style or just who the cat he was. But the fact the Bob Newhart show and Newhart, you look at him, those shows would not have worked with anyone else. They work so well. Both of those shows are just iconic, classic television.
Yeah, it takes a certain lack of ego and, great skill to like stand back that much and be that low key, and let other people be the loud weirdos and just sort of react to them.
I always love talking films with you because one of the things I've talked with you and I've talked with Trace Ballou as well from MST3K, you guys watch so many movies, you can't help but understand the industry better than I think most people do, let alone making of movies because you construct them so well. And so you do such a good job. And I got a great movie question for you because in a week plus, Deadpool opens up, Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
Which has been the deconstruction, I should say, of superhero movies. Right. When we go back to the 90s, Scream came on out. And before, there was all these slasher films. And Scream, by the nature of what it was, the deconstruction of all that kind of talk, absolutely changed horror films forever after that because they became very different films after that movie came on out. Deadpool has always been this tongue-in-cheek, taking shots at the industry itself. Yeah. And they're so good at it. And granted, when you had how Marvel did, the way they ended with that big fight with in Endgame and all that stuff, you really got to an apex. But I also think it had gotten so big that something like Deadpool was going to resonate, and it does because it deconstructs it. And do you think that that's what's happening to these superhero movies is that the deconstruction, the people being able to knock it down so efficiently changes that?
Yeah, not enough in a way. But I have to say, like, you can do that skillfully. And I think the reason that the Deadpool stuff, like right out of the gate, the first movie was deconstructing it. It was not a gradual thing. Is because it was based on the comics doing that. Mm-hmm. He actually talked like through the page in the Deadpool comics. And a friend of mine, Gail Simone, who's a comics writer, was one of the people who sort of pioneered that style along with some others for Deadpool, because he was just a remorseless, relentless killing machine otherwise. So they just decided to make him self-aware, and he was very funny. How that will mix with Wolverine, I guess, we'll see. Mm-hmm. But there's also, there's always been a little bit in the Marvel movies, the MCU movies, of deconstructing as they go, because they're aware that some of the things come off corny now. So they, like, Doctor Strange, that's your name, Yeah. So they have to sort of send it up as they go. And that can get, that can go either way to me. It's like, take it seriously or don't. But I don't know. I think if every movie starts deconstructing itself, that'll get tired too.
Absolutely. Scream. Now, at this point, it's become its own monster. But when you look at Deadpool, in the first Deadpool movie, he makes fun of how people land in superhero movies, right? How unnatural it is. And then in Black Widow, they actually mock that as well. I mean, it was, they're playing catch up there. So I think that there is. I'm looking forward to the next Captain America movie. Deadpool comes out. I'm looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. But it is there. I just don't know. I think they're going to have to be smarter about how they make these movies.
Absolutely. And they had one of their Marvel TV shows, She-Hulk, is another comic that had a certain self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And they had a wonderful actor. I'm trying to remember her name suddenly. Tanya something or other, Mosley. Mm-hmm. I think I had that slightly wrong, but she's a wonderful actor. She was in Orphan is the New Black. And there was nothing wrong with her performance, but somehow it didn't work as well. It wasn't as clear. It was a little more confused, and it's not a guarantee that it's going to work.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't. But I mean, I think you can get away with it with their biggest characters. But when I think the days as well of these secondary characters being able to generate $400 million at the box office, I think that those days are kind of going to go by the wayside until you get to when they've reintroduced the X-Men, and how they're going to do all that, I have no idea.
Gosh, I mean, what a mess. It's a money printing mess. So, it could be worse for them. But yeah, obviously interest has fallen off. They introduced a whole saga too of like parallel universes and quantum universes, and I found it a bit of a muddle, and it was not as clear as like leading up to that Endgame thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think just people get tired of it too. It's like, okay, they've pulled that off for a while. What's next?
Well,
Westerns.
They've had a run. I mean, if you even look back, I mean, the Bond films even haven't had a run that good, and they've had so many of them. Very few film franchises can pull off what they did, which I think was something like 20, 25 movies, and all of them just kept breaking records, and it was, it was really remarkable. So it was inevitably going to start coming back down.
Absolutely.
So, did you ever riff? Did Riff Tracks ever riff Twister?
Gosh, I don't think we did, but if I'm wrong, it would not surprise me.
I'm sure we're about to find out if you're wrong on Blue Sky. By the way, if you want to follow,
oh man, your memory's going worse than Biden.
and that's from Mike. If you go to Blue Sky, if you want to find out what Bill Corbett's been on social media, he's on Blue Sky. But I watched Twister. I watched the original one, Bill Paxton, and God, that movie is a little rough. But they're about to release this weekend Twisters. There's two of them. And it almost leans, I mean, in the original movie, Cary Elwes was this kind of stereotypical bad guy. We're here. We've got corporate sponsors. It almost...
He was yuppie jerk.
Oh, it seems like now that with this new version, they've just changed that into the, you don't know, unless you're grabbing dirt with your hand, don't give me those computer models. I know what's going on. Oh, for God's sakes, really? This almost looks, I hope it's as cheesy as it looks.
I mean, if they don't have at least one cow flying around in a Twister, I am walking out. And they really should top the first and have a whole herd of them just moving around in a circle.
Oh, gosh. Well, it looks just... Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, speaking of remakes, though, they actually did remake Point Break about 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it came and went. It had Gerald Butler, I think, in the Patrick Swayze role. And they made it so complicated. They were so eager to get away from this, kind of dopey but simple formula there is for the original that we're doing, that they made it into a thing about extreme sports, and it got all in on itself, and it didn't have the campy charm. And so you barely ever hear about that movie had a full remake, because people are like, I'm going to see that. I'm going to see the original and all the corny stuff that goes with it.
Well, but how many times have you guys taken those attempts, those sequels, their reboots and stuff, and they miss the point of it? And this is kind of one of the things going back to what Deadpool gets it because it's by design what it is. And if you stay with that design, you'll be fine. But it's when you try to, we're going to do Point Break, but take out all the cheesiness. Well, that's what are you doing, man? It's like taking with the Roadhouse. And I did like the Roadhouse reboot with Gyllenhaal, because it did have a bit of that cheesiness. This doesn't make any damn sense, but just go with it because that's what it is. I think it's hard, and you guys see so many of these movies that try so desperately to either make it serious or try to intentionally make the cheesiness, and it never works.
Yeah, I mean, we love when they try to make it serious, because then we can provide humor and be a nice contrast to that. It's when they try to sort of be funny too. It's like, oh boy, do we have to make jokes about bad jokes? Like that really feels kind of sour.
Well, that's why it's always great when you just go, oh God.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's enough of the joke. Because I think
right.
There are too many people that just don't want to, that they just mail it in. And maybe this is one of the things that is a benefit of the world that we're in right now with movies, is that stuff goes to streaming. That's on Prime. That's on Netflix. You're going to find it on Peacock or Paramount or wherever. That's where you'll find it. But if you're going to get released in the movie theaters, you can't make movies anymore that go into movie theaters where all the good lines are in the trailer. You have to have a little bit more substance.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this before. It's such a crazy Wild West out there between streaming and the strike is still reverberating through the months, and just kind of terrible studio heads just trying to just make it into a purely money. And like this has been joked about, like art versus commerce for decades. Since movies were around, there were commentary, but right now it just feels really cold-blooded. Like we're just going to squeeze everything we can. And streaming has been a real proving ground for that, and I don't think anybody knows quite where it's going to land, but I have all my friends in the industry are like, there's no money to do stuff at any scale out there unless you have like an intellectual property that is almost guaranteed to sell. And even that, you might not make it.
Real quick here, Riff Tracks, because for a lot of people, if they might not be familiar, you and your crew, how many years have you been doing Riff Tracks now?
Well, Matt, we've been in the business of movie riffing since the 90s. And for at least one of my two colleagues, Kevin Murphy, since the 80s, like when Mystery Science Theater started. He's the grand old man of it. He was around at the get-go.
Season 2. He was season 2 on Comedy Central, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely. And he was there behind the scenes, like from the very start on public access days. Mike joined a bit later. I joined considerably later. But yeah, we got together after the show ended and started this Riff Tracks thing. And we are celebrating our 18th anniversary in about 2 days, which is nuts to me. I would have said 10 years, but no, 18. We can vote now.
Well, and I want to encourage people, if you've not seen them, they occasionally do post little videos from the live shows. It's a riot. Once again, the State Theater, Saturday, July 27th at 7 p.m. They are live riffing Point Break, the original one. That will be filmed. Fathom Events will air it again nationwide August 8th, August 13th. Go to rifftracks.com for information on that and go see that. Now, Bill, I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. Can we jump into the political realm when we come back a little bit?
Absolutely. Pull me right in the pool.
All righty. It will be fun. Bill Corbett from Riff Tracks joining us today, 952-946-6205. Take a break, come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. It is the Matt McNeil Show, once again in Chicago and Minneapolis, St. Paul. Bill Corbett from Riff Tracks, kind enough to join us. It has been a stunning month of news ever since the debate. We had a Supreme Court ruling that overturned basically democracy itself as the executive branch. You have the Epstein files being released, basically stating directly that Donald Trump was on planes with Jeffrey Epstein and underage girls going to his island, plus other allegations from that. We have the national news media screaming at the top of the lungs about Biden getting out of the race. You have Trump trying to confront RFK Jr. into endorsing him. You have the attempted assassination of Donald Trump last Saturday. And now you have this RNC fascism on display. It's an old country buffet for really, really white people. It is just, your thoughts on,
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very much of your mind. I've been listening to the last 2 days of your shows. I think you're doing a really good job in sort of like keeping yourself on point in the middle of a national nervous breakdown, because that's what it feels like. Yeah. It has felt like that way since, like, as soon as the debate started, I was not watching it live. I just saw like people going out of their minds with, oh God, he's gonna lose. And, I saw some of it later. Yeah, it was a little tough to watch, but that has been, that was sort of like the starting gun for a month of insanity.
Yeah.
And culminating in the 1-2 punch of Trump clipped in the ear. Maybe we don't even know yet, I think. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's not like I don't think something happened, but there's still the possibility that it was a little piece of glass or something. There's no medical records. And then, the RNC convention happening the next day. So I don't know, Matt. I think what you have done a good job doing, and you're speaking for me here, is like, why are you people focused on this right now? Democrats, and I'm a pretty lefty, adjunct of the Democratic Party. I've talked about this with you and Cliff Schechter. It's like I do go on the lefter of the left side. So at best, I am not a huge party loyalist, but this has made me feel like it. It's made me feel like, what is wrong with Adam Schiff? If I get it, that like once you've decided, and you better have a good reason if you're switching now for all the chaos. It's made me really almost like paranoid. I just feel like, what is behind this?
Well, and it's this argument of, you know, here you have the RNC, and you saw this yesterday, I'm presuming. You've seen some of these images of mass deportations now. I mean, that is straight from, you know, Nuremberg, Germany, basically, in marches. You know, this sort of thing, this messaging, which, okay, fine, you're not Nazis, but you're cosplaying Nazis at this point. You got to stop this. And the news media, everyone's shrugging their shoulders. And the Democrats far more upset about the fact that it was, you know, that was such a bad debate performance. And I'm like, how is everyone falling down the stairs at the same time? I mean, how is this? How is this happening?
It's insane because I feel like, there was a time to address this.
Yeah,
it's long gone. You know, and maybe, if an emergency, you do all hands on deck, but you don't keep running to the news media and making it happen while not commenting on everything else. And, you know, whatever I think about Biden, I think he's been better domestically than I ever thought he would be.
Yes.
You know, the Gaza thing bothers me like everybody else, but like he far outstripped what I thought he would do. To the point where, like, maybe some in the party don't like that. This is how paranoid I've gotten mad. Is like maybe the big money donors want to replace him with somebody a little more friendly to their interests. And I know that could not be a lick of truth to this. I can't prove anything, but it makes me feel like, where is this coming from? Is it really fear of losing? Because I think you're giving a big assist to the Trump and company now by not screaming everything that they're doing from the rafters. Biden, to his credit, is trying to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, he wouldn't even give much ground after the assassination thing. He said, yes, it sucks that happened. Excuse my French. But, you know, where that rhetoric is coming from, it ain't us, you know?
Well, and I want to just give you credit because you pointed out something I don't think many other people have said. When Biden took office, his specialty was foreign policy. It wasn't domestic issues. Not saying he didn't have a lot of experience with it.
Right.
He has been is clearly the best domestic policy president since FDR. And really, hands down, been spectacular there. You know, I think this is a lot of panicking. We had polls that came out that said there was zero shift in the polls after the debate. Zero. And that also doesn't factor in the fact the polls are still undercounting 7 to 15% shift to the left, which is once again annihilated this whole red tsunami last time around. It really is panicking for panicking sake. And I don't know if it's just because it's easier to punch the guy sitting next to you than going across to the bully across the hall and putting one right in his schnoz. I don't know if that's what it is, but it almost feels like it's just easier. We'll just take the easy path and then pat ourselves on the back and give ourselves some sort of participation ribbon.
Yeah, I don't get it because it is easier to punch the guy next to you, and sometimes you have to. And where these conversations happen, like on social media, sometimes you'll hear like, "Stop! Why are you spending your time criticizing Democrats when you should be going after Trump?" Fair point, you know, but still, I don't have access to the whole of the DNC. This is where I do it. But for somebody like Adam Schiff or everybody else leaking it out, it is just particularly weird. And it makes me think, do they have numbers we're not seeing? What would they be?
Or are they looking at 2028? Is this what this is about or something? I don't know.
I would not. I mean, that my mind went there, too. Or we just say, are they just comfortable enough to say we can endure 4 more years of Trump? And, you know, if so, shame on, like eternal shame on them.
All right. You and I could talk politics for a long time, but we got to get going here. I do want to make sure I mention this once again. Coming up on Saturday, July 27th at 7 p.m. at the State Theater, downtown Minneapolis, Riff Tracks Live. They're riffing on Point Break. They're filming that. Fathom Events is going to be taking this nationwide. So Chicago and nationwide on August 8th, August 13th. You can go see that in your favorite movie theater. Bill Corbett from Riff Tracks. Bill, as always, a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Rifftracks.com, rifftracks.com. Chicago, have a good one. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next. number 2 of the show here. Good to have you with us today. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. So, you know, and I got to, by the way, can I say this about Bill Corbett? Seriously, one of the funniest guys I've ever met. A hilarious man, very witty. Also, if I can say, very humbled by his nice compliments to me, because, you know, I felt like, okay, calm the F down has had to be my motto for the last freaking month, because a lot of people are screaming and not a lot of people are looking at anything for any matter. And that goes in regards to Biden. And one of the things I've said, and I said at the beginning of the show, although there are a lot of rumors running around right now that Joe Biden is going to indeed step aside, and you'd be idiots if it wasn't Kamala Harris, because she'll have access to the Biden war chest. No one else will. So if it's not Kamala Harris, and I would make an argument Pete Buttigieg should be the vice president, that would be an amazing ticket. But if you are going to do, you know, you're going to do this, you know, fine. Until that time, until that moment, Joe Biden has got my vote. Hands down, not a question. And so I've not been engaging in this. But last night, the word came out that he had, as he was in Vegas, I believe it was, gotten COVID. And I sent a quick message considering it is COVID, and our COVID modeling expert is Dr. Joe Eastman, who is kind enough right now to take some time and join us right now. Hey, Dr. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing very well. Of course, Dr. Joe is with the World Health Network, and of course, we're working with a lot of different scientific teams. He does modeling. He does. You know, been basically the sane knowledge we have needed for the last 4 years when it comes to the pandemic and other virus issues that are out there. I want to read the message that you sent me, and this is why I'm having you on the air, and why even I at this point say, well, this needs to be factored in now. All right? This has to be factored in. You said at his age, and I think 2 previous infections, his chances of having long COVID are now about 45%. All right, Dr. Joe, let's start there. You know, is that what the science has been showing us? Is that the more the more times you're infected, the more likely is that the next infection will be a long COVID infection?
You're absolutely correct. You can see there's a function that it follows based on the data points, and I'll stress that graph that I sent does not break it down by age. So when you get older, the likelihood is, your immune system is in trouble to begin with, especially at 80 years old. And you're going to be more prone to long COVID. But I'm not saying it's going to be a severe neurodegenerative type of condition. It could be any of the over 200 symptoms of long COVID. But it's more likely to go after the brain because it basically will kill neurons and break down the pathways that you have.
You and I have talked about this quite a bit, and that this is even if you're not having long COVID, that's what it does. It goes after your brain, and by no means, and Dr. Joe nor myself are saying indeed he has long COVID. It is just is the more chances you get COVID, the higher the chances here, but. The fact is that what you just said there is that this has been a disease that has, the greatest generation, the silent generation, the baby boomers, they didn't deserve to go out like this. They did not deserve to go out like this, and yet it's targeted the seniors, and whereas some people have sat there and say, well, let them die, I don't think that this is how it should happen, but you cannot deny the fact the impact it has had, especially on older Americans.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, it says something about our society when you hear people, especially in one party, saying, well, they've had a good run, it's their time or whatever. The other thing I got to stress is it's going after all age groups now. And some people have had this virus in their body in reservoirs in different organs since basically March of 2020. Mm-hmm. And we can't clear it out. It's such a difficult medical problem that this viral persistence, and I mentioned this last time, you have basically remnants from the infection, the RNA particles floating around in your cells. They've reprogrammed your cells, your mitochondria, the energy house of your cells in your body, have been reprogrammed. They're breaking down. They're not working the same. It is a whole body virus, and we need to really stress that in the fact that it's a long COVID or long-term virus.
Well, and it's okay. It's not a surprise. And the guy's traveling across the country campaigning. Frankly, in my personal opinion, looking very presidential since the debate. He's looking pretty good. Right. But he's out there and he's going out and doing this, which brings to the other point we need to make sure we say. As COVID is rising across the country, and once again, if you're not subscribed to Dr. Joe's newsletter, you need to be, because these COVID cases have gone quite a bit higher in the last few weeks. And this is, what is the variant that's now? It's the K variant?
KP 3.1.1 is its overall transmission and fitness. Its immune escape efficiency is absolutely off the charts, and it's worldwide dominant, and it's just been around not that long. It's like a couple months, and it's just taken off rapidly, and it's outpacing everything else that's out there. It's a scary bugger.
Well, and I'm looking at Milwaukee right now. And I'm looking at a bunch of Republicans in a closed space there. I mean, just the numbers. How many people in that arena probably have COVID as we're speaking right now?
Right. You go with 1 out of 73. I don't know how big that arena is, but that's what our levels are right now, 1 out of 73 people. So you're in a room of, say, 50 people. Your chances of getting COVID are pretty darn good.
Well, and I don't see anyone. No one's masking. No one's doing anything. It just is. It's just, people keep insisting by their actions and by the government, the CDC's lack of, advice and motivation and leadership on this issue, that it is what it is. And I don't think we should be going there, because you have said from the get-go, all it takes is 1 or 2 variations, and we have a much more serious virus than the already insanely serious variants that we had earlier.
Absolutely correct. And it's not slowing down. If anything, it's picking up its pace and mutations. And we're not even close. The newest boosters that are coming out, and I stress, if you haven't never had a reaction to them, get your booster. But also, I've been talking to a lot of people, and it's very regional, this masking, that is going on. Is 45 out of 50 states are now high or extremely high transmission in the country. That's a pretty scary thought. It's summer. This thing ain't seasonal, folks. It's going to hit us all year round. And, once you have a big wave, you usually get a lull of about, a few months before things pick up again because of natural immunity. But because of the immune escape of these new variants, it's not that long anymore either. They're going to come right back at you. Yeah.
And this is the scary part about it, is that people, I think, are terrified politically of saying, hey, we need to go back to this, or even commercially. I think there are businesses that would want to do this. It's like you come into a store, you have to wear a mask. But I think that they know that, you see how people react to a few rainbow T-shirts in a freaking Target. That, the last thing you want to do is basically all of a sudden get people screaming about face diapers outside of a Target store or something like that. It just, it really is kind of scary how eager we are to drive ourselves towards the cliff here.
It's absolutely amazing. We do it almost in every aspect of our lives nowadays. It seems like it doesn't stop. What I was going to say is the masking has become a regional thing around Philly, or I was just talking to somebody in the Atlanta Hartsburg airport, and they said that people are wearing masks in these spots because they're getting hit hard by this bugger. And they realize, gosh, maybe we ought to stop getting infected all the time. It's not a respiratory virus. It's a whole body virus.
This, where are we? The vaccinations for this variant, the KP 3.1.1, that where is that vaccination development at right now? Going to be out there soon?
Not for this particular variant. We're still working on the JN1, And there was talk about the KP2, but this thing's like blown right past KP2. So either way, it is a good idea. It's going to keep you likely out of the hospital. A very good chance. If you've been keeping up with these things, your likelihood is less than half of going into a hospital. That's a good thing. And your chances of long COVID drop. A recent study just came out 2 days ago, I think it was, that showed this explicitly based on a huge group of people. If you keep your vaccinations up, your chances of getting long COVID are greatly reduced. So I got to stress that. We need to keep on this, and hopefully the public health officials will start they're waking up a little bit, and people are starting to rumble. So hopefully it will happen down the road here soon.
Well, and that's on the positive side of Biden getting this. I mean, he has been one of the first people to show he's getting his vaccinations on this. So he is up to date vaccination-wise. And so, that there is a much less chance of it being a long COVID. But, this is for all of us. I mean, there's this idea, whether it's going to a concert or a Twins game or a movie theater or anything, that you just need to understand, as you're saying, 1 in 73 people have this. If that's really the ratio, you just count how many people are in any area with you, because if it's more than 73, well, odds are at least one person in there has got COVID, and how, do you want to really risk it?
And we got the Minnesota State Fair coming up. By the way, I would stay away from anything to do with the agriculture area.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, let's get to that magical thing. Let's get the bird flu, which is it's improperly named now because it's in the mammals, and it's in the birds, and it's in the milk supply and all this. What's the number of humans that have been contaminated with bird flu from dairy and chickens? Do we know what the total number is right now?
Yeah, well, Colorado just had 5 over the weekend. 5? 5 of them, yeah. And I believe they had somewhere in the 40s that they were kind of keeping a close eye on. But you got to remember, there's also another aspect to this, and that's I think there's like 4 million chickens in Colorado. They're going to cull 3 million of them. So what's that going to do to the egg prices out there in Colorado too? And the other thing is, we're getting better at reporting the genomics, the genetic sequences of these things, and we are seeing that it is making adaptations to hit the upper respiratory tract of humans. And I think the first step of the 4 to 5 that I said would make this thing go ballistic has happened, and that has to do with the PB2 and the enzyme E637K that they've had this substitution that's showed up. So it's making progress, and the longer we keep these reservoirs going on our poultry and cattle farms, it's also going back and forth between cows and chickens too. It's the chickens infect the cows. We thought that was it. No, it's going right back into the chickens. So it just keeps circulating around.
Don't let the chickens and the cows near each other, for God's sakes. Now, I do want to take a quick moment, if we can, because I want to back up, because there are probably some people here that don't know what we're talking about with those 4 or 5 steps that we talked about. When this started happening, I think we got our first guy down in Texas who got bird flu from a cow. You had said, the question was, how many steps does it need to take to where it goes from, people who are around livestock a lot getting bird flu because of their close proximity to the cows or the chickens, versus it being transmitted human to human. And you had said at that point there are 4 to 5 steps that have to happen, which are pretty big, mutations, but still clearly within the realm of things that could possibly happen, that if it does happen, then all of a sudden this is a much bigger problem, because avian flu is a much more dangerous virus than even COVID was. And so we don't want it to get there, but you have basically said one of those steps, the ability for it to thrive within the human respiratory system, that has been achieved.
Yeah, it's able to bond to a called a sialic alpha 2/6 receptor, which in the birds and in humans, it's very prevalent in your upper respiratory tract. tract. Before it was bonding to what came out of the poultry and the cattle, the sialic pathway alpha 2-3 receptor, which is not very prevalent. It is a little more prevalent in your lower respiratory tract, but not the upper, where that's when you start really opening things up to further infection.
The good news is those other few steps are pretty big steps that are not going, I mean, you would hope would not happen quickly.
We've seen one of my people, this Dr. Emanuel, that I really have a lot of respect for, in his opinion, is indicating that he thinks within 5 years, this thing will probably make that jump for all steps to occur. So that's really scary. And, you know, I don't want to alarm people. Everybody's heard this 50% death rate, but the problem is when they calculate that, they're not testing for all the people that are also infected but not showing symptoms, or they're just blowing it off as like a cold or something like that. So that's a key. We think it's going to be closer to the 10%, which is what COVID started out with, and we had the refrigerator trucks lined up in New York City and such. So, you know, if it's 10%, that's a whopper, because my model shows it can go from a mere 10 infections to between 18 and 40 million within about 45 days. So take 10% off that.
And reminder, we're in a good medical country. I mean, there's a lot of countries where it's much more close quarters. There's a lot more jammed in population, and the medical system there is not even close to being prepared to deal with it as the United States one can. And even still, it was overwhelmed here. And so in Europe and stuff, we haven't learned. You know, it's kind of one of those things that this is something that during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, there was a lot of people talking about this is going to kind of be the new normal, whether it's bird flu or some other disease that jumps from animals to humans, that this is just going to be the way it is, because it's just, that's how the population has gone, that these tight-knit, high population centers where they're interacting with animals, that, you know, it's going to happen. And yet we now are back to a point like, well, you know, let's, you know, what are you talking about? Is there anything? Did you see the Olympics are coming up? We don't need to talk about the Olympics. Speaking of which, how terrifying is it going to be for the Olympics? I didn't even mention that.
Get Anthony Edwards home, please.
Get Anthony. I
got to point out one other thing. We got millions of H5N1 vaccines pretty close to ready. What they're doing in Finland, they're giving them to the farm workers that are working there. We're not going to do that. I'm like, what?
They're not. Come on, Dr. Joe. They're not millionaires and billionaires. The millionaires and billionaires get them. Those people, they're working hourly wages. They'll get them after they're dead.
Yeah, it's astounding. It really is. And their reasoning is, they haven't shown severe symptoms, blah, blah, blah. Well, come on, folks. If they could start passing it on to other humans, we got to stop it in its tracks. It is amazing to me.
We didn't learn a damn thing. We didn't learn a damn thing.
We're going to be 0 for 2 if this happens.
This is just great. All right, now I don't necessarily mean to bring you the Matt McNeil doom and gloom hour. This is not there. I will say though, I mean, get vaccinated. You know, wear a mask if you're in large groups. These are just common sense things that you still need to keep doing. Correct?
You got that right. Please do it.
And in regards to President Biden, this is not any. We once again, if with the medical staff he's got watching, with the vaccinations he's in a very good position to weather this. But still, at the same time, you can't mess around with that. I will, just because you're here and you got Ant, because he is also our basketball correspondent. Dr. Joe is. Is there anyone that's going to give us any trouble in the Olympics, you think?
Not this team really looks determined, and Ant says, I'm the go-to guy. You know, he's taken full charge, which is really cool to see from a 22, 23-year-old kid. Yeah. Holy buckets.
I think getting into these, I think this is one of the reasons why I think Caitlin Clark was so upset about not making it, onto the women's team is because there is certain kind of leadership and skill development that happens at this kind of level. And, being able to get in there like Ant, he will be a better player for the T-Wolves when he comes back. He just will be.
Look out for that guy next year. I think we're going to see something really special out of him. And I'm looking at this draft pick we got out of Illinois. I've been watching
the second pick. The second pick. That guy is amazing, man.
Yeah, he's tearing it up. All their prospects look really good. They're on at 10 o'clock tonight if you want to watch them. So
who are they playing? What country?
The Houston Rockets.
Are they playing the Houston? Did I miss a news update? When did Houston become a new country? They're playing the Houston. They're playing the actual Houston Rockets somewhere.
Oh no! I meant the summer league team.
Oh,
the Timberwolves.
Okay, the summer league team.
After we toyed with Serbia the other day, it was like when Ant stole the ball from Joker from the Nuggets.
Oh yeah,
Joker was he's shaking his head. And he's going, "Oh my God, this
Not
guy!
This again.
I have nightmares."
You just scared me there with what country we were playing, and you said Houston. I'm like, wow, I have been watching too much Doctor Who. All right,
I've been watching too much hoops.
One last question. Hoops aside, the Olympics coming up starting tomorrow. They got the opening ceremonies. What weird sport are you most looking forward to seeing?
Oh my gosh, I'm like thinking about them people swimming in the Seine River.
We'll be talking about a new disease. This is our best likely chance for something really breaking news. By the end of August, we're going to have Olympic fever, only it's not the good kind of Olympic fever. It's actual Olympic fever from the damn river in Paris.
Damn river, and they got the Zeta virus there too. So we got all of them.
Well, I'll say this: I was in Nuremberg when I was in the military. I was stationed in Nuremberg, and there's a river that runs through Nuremberg, and it's 400 or 500 years of crap in there. From bombs that didn't go off to bodies they just dumped in there. Yeah, let's go for a swim. Maybe that's why they drink so much over there, is because they have to. That's what you need to do, but. There's no way in the planet. I've been to Paris a few times. I'm not touching that river. I'm not touching the river at all.
Yeah, their mayor swam in it the other day, so she was trying to show it was safe. I don't know if you've seen Netflix Down Under, the shark movie where there's sharks in there.
Wouldn't be surprised. Well, we'll look forward to when hopefully we're not having an urgent update from Dr. Joe about the serious illness of the Paris mayor. But hopefully that's not going to be coming up here. Dr. Joe, I appreciate it. I appreciate your insight on Joe Biden. That's why I had to have you on. Thank you very much. As always, your newsletter is a must-read. I'll link to it after the show today, okay?
Hi, thank you very much, Matt, for your time and for doing that, too.
It's a privilege to be able to chat with you. You're so dang smart. It's you make my show better, and I'm so glad that you are still out there giving out this information because no one else is. No one else is at this point.
And you give me a voice, so thank you for that.
My pleasure, my friend. Dr. Joe Eastman, our COVID modeling expert, kind enough to join us. Let's take a break. Come on back. It is the Matt McNeil Show here on your Thursday. The progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. So, just wrapping up, after we talked to Dr. Joe, because I wanted to bring him on before I made this point, okay? Dr. Joe talking about Joe Biden and him having COVID and realizing that there is now that if he's had it a third time, is a 45% chance that the COVID he's got right now is long COVID. I still have faith in the man that if he decides, you know what, I'm going to stay in the race, I'm going to back him. If he's in the race regardless, I'm going to back him because we can't mess around with this. We cannot mess around with this. But I almost ask the question, is this is a man himself who is a devout Catholic, is this some sort of sign saying, you know what, you've done well, you did good. Maybe it is time. He has been a magnificent president. He really has. I think one of the great hesitations I have here, if he does step aside, is the epic amount of Democratic stupidity that we're about to be exposed to, where it's some person saying, unless it's Gavin Newsom, I'm leaving. Or Dean Phillips saying, unless it's me, because I was the only one that ran, I'm leaving. I'm suing. There's going to be an epic amount of stupidity that comes out here. There really is only one logical choice for a replacement of Joe Biden, and that is Kamala Harris, because she's the only one that can take over his extensive campaign war chest. And she can't do it as a vice president to somebody else. It has to be her at the top of the ticket or as vice president to Joe Biden. I personally feel as if Harris and Pete Buttigieg, can you imagine what Pete Buttigieg would do to Vance in a VP debate? Oh, God. That would be one of the most brutal beatdowns in the history of politics. I think it would be I think it would be definitely a very strong ticket. And I think that the unification of the Democrats right now is there, that if it's just quick, done, I'm not going to step aside, we're going to have Kamala Harris, great. Unfortunately, my biggest fear is that if Joe Biden does step aside, the stupids are going to run amok in the Democratic Party. And they're going to, we need to find someone else who's much younger, this next generation, like Bernie Sanders. What are you doing? What are you doing? I need to find the most outrageous, extremist, far less progressive, and unless they're the nominee, I'm not going to vote. Oh, God, I can just see it. If it's not Joe Biden, it's got to be Kamala Harris. And that's it. But until that time, I'm riding with Biden. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Let's take a break, get caught up. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on your Thursday.
Oh, don't you dare look back. Just keep your eyes on me. I said you're holding back. She said shut up.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Let's get Brad in Robbinsdale. He wanted to chime in here on my thoughts on Biden and, of course, Dr. Joe's interview. Hey, Brad.
Okay, I was just going to say that if coming out of the convention in Chicago, the endorsed candidate was a jar of mealworms, I would vote for the jar of mealworms in November over Trump Vance.
It definitely would have more appeal. Sure. Hey, thanks, Brad. I appreciate the phone call. That's it for me. Right now, Joe Biden is the nominee for president from the Democrats. He's got my vote. The reality is that, if there's a lot of talk about him getting changed. If it changes, I'm going to say this. Joe's going to need to be on board with this. And so for all you jackasses out there on the Democratic Party who are sitting there going, he needs to go, it's too bad. For all of a sudden for you to come in with your crocodile tears like, Joe Biden was such a great guy. No, you don't seem to understand. The way that he has been treated by you, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Joe Biden's a decent human being, but would I be too surprised if he basically decided, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be involved in this. I'm not going to, I'll step aside. I'm not going to badmouth it, but I'm not going to be there. He has the right because, once again, all he's been is the best first-term president we've had since FDR. And the way that it's been pushed to the side is, it is, yeah. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205 is the phone number. I'll tell you what, I'll let's just bring her on in really quick here. And this is the last call I'm going to take on this, but I'll get Jennifer and Hopkins. This is the last call I'm going to take on this. Welcome on in, Jennifer.
Hi. The best part about a Harris-Buttigieg ticket is we would have a woman of color for president and a gay man for vice president, and seeing all those Republicans just squirm until they couldn't take it anymore.
Well, and Jennifer, if I could say this point, and thank you very much, I appreciate the phone call, we would have unbelievable competence. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that the symbolic nature of a woman of color and a gay vice president would be unbelievable. I mean, socially, it would be there. But frankly, those are two insanely competent individuals who would drive this country in the right direction. And at the end of the day, I mean, hey, I like the fact that we have a country that would be more diverse in appearances by all means, but it's even far more appealing. That ticket to me is far more appealing for the unbelievable level of competence that those two people display on a day-to-day basis doing their job. Have you seen Pete Buttigieg just smack around senators and House reps when they get stupid on him? Unbelievable. No one does it. He goes on Fox News, and Fox News is like, we got to go to commercial break. They don't know what to do with the guy because he's so good. Yes, and yeah, it'd be fantastic as far as, a symbolic moment for the gay community as well as for a black woman to be president. But at the same time, I would say this, it's just the competence level there in both of them, hands down. By the way, she was from Hopkins. Can I just say this? Someone found the damn raspberry. The golden raspberry is gone, man.
I was waiting when you were going to bring this up this week. So how did it get found already? Didn't they just start the hunt like either yesterday or today?
I would like to blame the fool who did the clues, but I don't want to go down. I mean, the guy's, some volunteers doing that. I don't want to do this. I just think there's so many people looking for it that it's kind of one of those things where it's got to be hidden in a park someplace. And if you go out to a park, I mean, I've done this. I've looked for these for years. My kids, we'd always go out and do it. There's not a lot of, it can't be hidden in something. It has to be visible. You have to be able to see it. It can't be higher than 6 feet. And if you look around, it's kind of hard to do that. So I think you evade me yet once again. Patrick Reusse, the sports guy here in town, have we seen him lately? Have we had any sights of him being dragged to Iowa by a bunch of Hawkeye fans?
I can't say I've seen that sight yet.
We need to keep an eye out on this. Patrick Reusse is actually a pretty good guy. I have met him a few times. Very nice man. One cannot step on a cell phone of a basketball superstar, Caitlin Clark, without at least being considered for the annual Turkey of the Year award in Minnesota. What happens when the chairman of the Turkey Year Committee is the suspect? Gets this, Brett. Patrick Reusse goes to trial. He'll be convicted himself as he released a video proof that he had his cell phone misstep, which through a secondhand source was just a tap, according to the 79-year-old Star Tribune writer. There's a video of a portly aged sports writer stepping on Caitlin Clark's cell phone at Target Center on Sunday. Reusse wrote on Twitter, the evidence is clear. The 30-second mark in the video, Clark puts her phone on a towel on the floor of the picture following the Indiana Fever's win over the Lynx Sunday, only for Reusse to step on it. It was obvious to Clark, whose vision guided her to the NBA record 19 assists in Indiana's win over Dallas on Wednesday night, saw Royce's right foot falling in the phone's direction. She cautiously crouched and timidly reached, likely uttering a Midwestern oop as the devices got crushed by Reusse. Reusse 1, cell phone 0. The phone is said to be in good condition, said Judd Zulgad, former strip writer himself, confirming the phone survived, and Reusse is claiming it was just a tap. But considering Hawkeye fan and how belligerent they are about things, can we get 24-hour security for Patrick Reusse so he's not carried down to Iowa City and sacrificed at is it Kinnick Stadium down there? What's the name of their football stadium down there?
Yeah, you were an Iowa State guy, so when you were down there, I think it's Kinnick.
Kinnick,
yeah.
It was a fair catch, guys. Anyway, it was a fair catch. It was a fair catch. Oh, anyway, Reusse, stay safe, my friend. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Have you ever done that? I mean, well, first of all, who puts a cell phone on the floor?
I'm surprised, too, that someone of her stature would just have that laying around. I would.
Okay, you just got done playing the game. Is there someone in the stands or on the bench with your cell phones and handing out the team their cell phones the second they get done? That doesn't seem like a really good idea for that exact reason.
I would think if you're like a professional athlete, you would be putting your cell phone maybe in your locker or something and not bringing it with you to the floor.
You know sports better than I do. Really, isn't that okay? It's after the game, but until you've met with the press and the media and done the interviews, that's all part of it. I mean, you're still playing, basically. It's part of the whole experience. Who would allow them to get their personal cell phones and kind of just, watch a YouTube or TikTok video? It's like, guys, we still got to finish things up here. We got, there's always going to be media to talk to and stuff. I mean, isn't that part of the game?
I would think so, too. And, I don't know if I like cell phones on the benches. I could just picture, I'm going to go on DraftKings here during the game and see if I can make a little money during it.
God, I didn't even think about that. You're right. What? No Iowa fan, don't come here. Don't come get Brett. He's not suggesting that was what's going on.
No.
That is actually a legitimate concern. I would say, the phone stay in your locker, you come play the game, you do your media availability, and then afterwards, when you go get cleaned up after the game, that's when you get your cell phones. At least that's how I would do it. But, I'm an old 55-year-old, Dad, you're not cool anymore guy, so I don't know what it is. Where am I going to find sunshine on this day? Marisa Simonetti. Oh, I love her. I love her. The Hennepin County candidate who tossed a tarantula at her tenant. She was in court on Thursday as controversy continued around her campaign. Dressed in black and referring to herself as the Spider Queen, Simonetti says she had a chance meeting with attorney John Daly at the Ridgedale Courthouse in Minnetonka, and he agreed to represent her on the misdemeanor charge of fifth-degree assault. It was a chance meeting? Chance meeting? Okay, the more I've read about her, chance meeting doesn't... Okay, I'll just take it at face value. Chance meeting at Ridgedale. The charge stems from a dispute Simonetti 30 had with Jacqueline Vasquez, who was subletting the basement of her Edina home. Daly said he wasn't aware of the case before meeting Simonetti on Thursday when she was due to appear for a procedural hearing. Daly said he agreed to take the case because he believed the charge should be dropped. Do ya? Because I got some video you need to see. I don't know if it needs to be dropped or not. I think Miss Simonetti deserves a good defense, and that's what she's going to get, Daly said about his decision to take her case. He declined to discuss the specific merits of the charge, saying he needs to review the evidence. Maybe, I don't know if you should have gone on the record as taking this one right away there, Daly. I'm just going to say. I didn't hit anyone. I didn't do anything. I'm not guilty, Simonetti said, describing meeting Daly as a stroke of luck. Things always work out for me. Oh, sure, yeah. Once again, this 6th district, this Hennepin County 6th district, which once again, it's a non-political office, but she is herself claimed to be the conservative candidate, something the Republican Party has kind of pushed away from. And the reason why is there's a special election for Senate in that district. And so they desperately want to try to pick this up. And what did she call herself here?
The Spider Queen.
The Spider Queen. I don't think that's going to help your chances. Things always work out for me. Sure. Hiring a lawyer means Simonetti's case essentially starts over. She is due back in court on October 17th when she said she plans to plead not guilty. Videos posted on social media so Simonetti yelling, blaring Christian rock music, and throwing toys, tacks, and other items down the stairs. At one point, she releases a live tarantula, tosses a live tarantula that Simonetti says she bought as a joke in reference to the movie Home Alone. I don't think it was so much a joke for the tarantula. Vasquez says the incident was deeply disturbing and deeply distressing, and while she wasn't physically harmed, she was emotionally and mentally injured. Oh, the civil case against you, good luck with that one, because that one, once again, a criminal case, that's one thing. The civil case, that video, yeah. I just hope you have your checkbook handy. That's just my suggestion on that. Just going to my suggestion. Simonetti accused Vasquez of being a squatter who wouldn't leave the home, forcing her to find an unconventional solution, which is not, I don't believe, a legal conventional. I don't know the legal, ramifications of trying to get someone out of your house that you don't want to be there. But I don't think playing Christian rock music, throwing tarantulas, and chucking stuff down the stairs as you scream and battle on pots is the way to do it. By the way, who is the guy that she was doing that with? By the way, who is the dude that also got arrested that day? Or was it arrested or was it charged? Summons or whatever. Vasquez and her attorney did not really respond to a request for comment. Simonetti continues to embrace her new notoriety, including selling tarantula tosser T-shirts to raise money for her campaign. Wow, that's disturbing. Oh, you had to pay extra for that. Never mind. No, I'm sorry. She quickly posted a video on social media Thursday of her walking out of the courthouse with Daley saying, he saved the day. She plans to tape a segment with A&E. This is where it gets hilarious. She's going to tape a segment with A&E show My Strange Arrest on Friday. Daley quickly jumps in. We should talk about that, Daley said when he learned of the planning taping. Generally, I would say that is a bad idea. So he takes this case, has no idea of the evidence against her. As he's walking out, she's putting her, I guess, on some sort of social media stream and says, I'm going to be on My Strange Arrest on Friday on A&E. And he's like, no. That's not what I would do as a defense attorney. I would not do that. Simonetti's altercation with Vasquez is just one out of the ordinary things of her background. She has refused to confirm or deny whether she works as an escort. All I'll say on the record is that if you want to find out, you'd be pretty expensive to do so, she said in a recent interview. Wink. Did she do like one of those Lucille Bluth winks? I'm just asking. Previously, Simonetti raised a statement saying she had to make a plan for her and her son to escape an abusive situation and is now in a considerable wealth. I refuse to accept any narrative that shames or blames women for the autonomy that they have over their own bodies, her previous statement said. Simonetti also has acknowledged being in financial-based relationships and working as an escort would be better than dating, which she felt was pointless and dishonest. She describes herself as a businesswoman who owns rental property and is the leader of Simonetti Real Estate, but her real estate license was revoked by the Minnesota Department of Commerce in 2016 for fraudulent, deceptive, and dishonest practices. Simonetti doesn't think her turbulent past or recent legal issues should detract from her campaign for Hennepin County Commissioner representing District 6. In April, she became the second in a 6-candidate special primary for an open seat in the board and then lost a special election for the former state representative Heather Edelson. The board oversees the county's $2.7 billion budget and 10,000 employees. The commissioners make about $122,000 annually. District 6 has 66 precincts, which include the West Metro communities of Edina, Hopkins, Mound, Minnetonka, Wayzata, Long Lake, and Shorewood. So this is my rep in Hopkins. It's a nonpartisan race, but Simonetti has campaigned as a Republican with her focus on cutting spending, improving public safety, and promoting family values. Once again, selling a T-shirt that says tarantula tosser. But Simonetti says voters will identify with her background and her struggles as a single mom. Yeah, okay. All righty. Mr. Daley, may I suggest you might want to review that case. And just as everything else is going, I'm going to go with you. I think the A&E thing is probably not the best idea. But that's just me, man. That's just me. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Thursday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show, 952-946-6205. So, final story today. Minneapolis Police Department's new labor contract, which the Minneapolis City Council voted to authorize Thursday morning, will bring a historic wage increase to the department. The agreement, approved on an 8-4 vote, gives officers a 5.5% pay increase retrospective to July 1st, a 2.5% increase on January 1st of 2025, and a 3.5% increase on July 1st of 2025. Supporters of the new contract say the agreement will help address the department's staffing crisis and put Minneapolis Police Department's compensation rates among the highest in the region. Officers' pay will increase 21% compared to current salaries over the next year, bringing salaries to $92,693, which the reformer notes is higher than the starting salaries for officers in L.A. and New York City. It enhances transparency, strengthens managerial oversight, and equips Minneapolis Police Department management with essential tools to better deploy limited resources and run the department. Now, I want to say this, and I'm going to be very clear. Was it earlier this week or was it last week? I think it might have been last week. Last week I reported on Demario Reed, the brother of Jamar Clark, who basically was hit by a police car. It doesn't sound like what the police report said matched what happened to the guy. And the guy was put into a hospital for a week as a John Doe. And at no point the police tried to get in touch with the family to let them know where he was at. It was like 5 days later they finally found out where he was. And he finally came out. But needless to say, there's some real freaking questions I got about what the heck the Minneapolis Police Department was doing with Demario Reed there. And you need to release all the body cam and vehicle footage to explain what exactly happened. Because this is ugly. That's ugly. And as I said very angrily when that story came out, I don't like this because this reminds me of stuff that went on during the Bob Kroll Police Department. And Bob Kroll was an absolute disaster of a leader in that police department. And frankly, one of the reasons why they're having the staffing issues is a lot of his buddies, and I'll let you take that any way you want to, a lot of his buddies, when they realized they weren't going to be able to get away with the stuff that they've been able to get away with, they ran and took I've got PTSD payment with them. And good riddance. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't have a lot of things they have to clean up, but I think O'Hara is trying to do a decent job. I like this. And I agree with this. I think that you're going to create a standard that this is a pretty decent paying job. And this should help, I think, immediately with staffing concerns in the city, especially as they try to turn the path that they had been on. We are done for the day. Native Roots Radio is coming up next. I am back tomorrow. Have a good one. Till then, see ya.